Okay. You want to talk about, you want to? Yep.
Is it the appointed hour?
It's 7 p.m.
Good. Why don't we call the meeting to order? And I'll ask for those that are able and willing to stand for the pledge of allegiance. Good evening and welcome everybody to the Wednesday, November 1st Planning Board meeting, our regularly scheduled meeting. First item on the agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for those in the public to make let us know of any comments or concerns they have. Into a particular agenda item, I will allow an opportunity to speak on any of these particular agenda items. But if there's anything that's not on the agenda, please feel free. Anybody in the audience that wishes to make a public comment?
It's me.
Nate,
You're on the agenda. I'm the what?
Nothing on the agenda.
Is this about something we have on our agenda already?
Yes.
You're gonna speak to it then.
We'll allow comments when we actually get to.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch
This
it.
is for items not on the agenda. Not from,
Sorry,
no, thank you. Whatever. Is there anybody in Zoom that wishes to make a comment? Okay, seeing no comments, we'll move on in the agenda and we'll move to the October 18th, 2023 minutes. Everybody should have had an opportunity to look at them. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? And if not, how about a motion to approve?
The motion, we approve the minutes of the October 18th, 2023 meeting.
Been moved. A second. Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's a unanimous vote. And so as we move on to new business, there are a couple items to get out of the way. The first one is going to be SP 23006. This is regarding the home occupation findings of fact for the dentist's office right up here at the top of the hill for a single chair dentist office. We reviewed it under major home occupation, although at the last meeting we generally determined that the impact was relatively low and conformed to the ordinance. Well, I've had an opportunity to look at the findings of fact, and with that, I'll open it up for any questions or comments that the board might have, and if there are none, I would be looking for a motion to approve the findings of fact for SP 23006. Anybody have an opportunity? Any questions or comments? Follows the standard format that we've been using for quite some time.
Just want to take a quick minute to apologize to the board because it should be under old business, but it's located under new business.
No, that's fine.
And I didn't see it till you wrote it.
Semantics.
Oh my gosh.
Doesn't matter. Anyway, are there any comments on the findings of fact? Questions? Going once, going twice, is there a motion to approve? SP 23006. Not all at once here, folks.
Make a motion to approve SP 23006.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, unanimous. Very good. All right. And MSP, I'm moving on under new business, MSP 22003. Probably need to give a little bit of a review here. It's been a while since we've seen this one. You may recall this is regarding the Sandville Estate. Sandville Estates came before us, well, many months ago now. And the last action that we had with Sandville was to request and authorize a third-party review. So the purpose of this meeting really tonight should be to, inquire if we have any questions regarding the third-party review. We are all aware of it. We have received a copy. My understanding is the third-party review and questions that raised were sufficiently answered, I believe. I have not heard otherwise, but those questions were sufficiently answered and incorporated into the plans that are before us tonight. So if there are no further questions on this, that gets us back to what would the next steps be. And right now, that would put us back into the preliminary plans review stage. So if we're satisfied that there's nothing to further discuss out of the third-party review, we can discuss it. And then what I would suggest we do is motion to approve, move it to the next review phase of the final plan review. Correct, that's the next, yeah. And so that's what we would want to do. So are there any questions or comments? I do have a few of my own, but I'll withhold those until other board members have an opportunity. So with that being said, Hershey.
Is there somebody from Ashlar Engineer? Oh, I had a really quick question. I hate that I really tried to review this. There's an existing pond. And in your water flow calculations, one of the questions is there somewhere where it takes into account its current usage and amounts before adding? Because it looks like it all starts from zero and new, you know what I mean? As if it's only this affecting it, but it's already there and doing some due diligence of its own. So, see what I'm saying?
Yes, hi, Wyatt Page, representing Adler Engineering, Mick Construction, and Carol Mick. So yes, I believe you're referring to the pond that is it's existing, and I believe it's north of South Field Street, I believe is what we called it on the plan.
It's called pond here, existing pond in your list of, you know, yeah.
So if you, I assume you're looking at the HydroCAD calculations right now.
Yes.
So that, yes, so that pond is, it's a little complicated, but essentially that pond is referring to the existing pond that's there. And the truth of it is that we're actually removing a lot of, as far as the way that the subcatchment and the drainage is set up, most of the water from around that pond currently is draining to it. When we put in the road's going to be peaked. We have swales running down the side of the road. We're actually cutting out a lot of the water that's going to this existing pond. It's being redirected to other stored drainage fixtures, but I appreciate the question, as it was one of the things that was mentioned in the third-party review, so yes.
Yes, I mean, the third-party review really focuses on a lot of things, but one of those is primarily the stormwater.
That seems to be their main concern.
That those were sufficiently addressed, in my view.
Yeah. Okay.
Any questions or comments from the board? All right, so in the past, I want to go back. I did spend quite a bit of time reviewing the documentation that was submitted to us. And I went back and refreshed my memory. There are a couple of issues, frankly, that are hanging up in my head that need to be addressed. Now, one of them in particular may not need to be addressed tonight, but is definitely an issue that will need to be addressed as we approach the final plan, and that's the whole water issue. The superintendent of the water district did submit a letter to us and outlined a various set of concerns, and asked in the letter if the planning board would place this as a list of set of conditions. And so I do think that it would be imperative that this board give that some further consideration as we move on. And I think we're going to want to have some resolution to that. Again, I'm not seeing the need to have that tonight, but I'm raising it as an issue, that is an issue we need to be aware of. And before we actually approve the final plan, that's where we want to be. We want to know what we're doing with the water. I don't know where you are. I'm not asking to tell me any conversations other than to say, it'd be great if at the next meeting, we have a clear direction on, is there agreement? Not does this board have to make a determination one way or the other? And I know we will. So that's something to consider. The other issue is, again, in my review, I want to go back lot of experience in this particular field, and one of the items that's sticking with me, and I'm gonna kind of talk in general terms, no, but you can sit down, I don't have any particular questions for you at this point. There always seems to be this foregone conclusion here at the planning board that somehow we're going to accept a road. But I want to make it clear that we're not the ones that actually accept a road as a public way. And it is my understanding, based on past documentation and conversation, that the developer intends to approach the town and ask that this become a public way. And so in past meetings,
Do you mind clarifying which road?
the new development off of Meadow Pond Road. So Meadow Pond Road is a public way. The new development on yet to be named roads, right, are going to be considered, or the request will be made to the town to make those a public way. Now, I know in past meetings, I've raised some concerns about the, one, it's a little bit interesting out there in the sense that one access point is over and through the town of Berwick off Industry Drive. And so that's a private way. I've raised numerous issues in the past or concerns that I see some potential issues with that, where you have a public way coming into, what is ultimately a private way that is the main access point. I see issues associated with that for the town in terms of access the first time, that if the town does accept it, what are we going to do when it comes to the road not being plowed? What are we going to do with the homeowners association when it comes to the road not being maintained? I want to go back and look at some of the past projects that some members here have talked about. When we had a public hearing on a development over on Great Hill Road, some of the residents got up and spoke about this very issue, this foregone conclusion of these roads that are automatically going to become public roads. And okay, they need to be built up to town standards, but then after that, who's going to be maintaining these? And that's just, again, one aspect of these particular issues. And I can point to several roads out my way at this point in time that were subject of great debate back in the day, and those roads are frankly falling apart at this point, and those are town's responsibilities. And that is a legitimate concern that I have. So as I review the ordinances, one of the things I want to consider and think about is what is this board's responsibility in terms of what we believe the impact to be on town resources, which is well within our rights. We heard from the residents out there, wonderful. We know what they're thinking. We have plenty of documentation where they describe to us their positioning on this. However, based on prior board conversations, general ordinance review, and then going back and reviewing additional the documentation contained in the packets, we have some concerns that are expressed to us from various town officials. And some of those town officials are the folks that are in charge of the roads, in charge of plowing. And in those letters, they issue and state that they have concerns about this and what it will do to their operation. Let's not, lose track of the fact that this is a substantial development. It is sizable. I am also aware, and this board should also be aware through prior conversations here, that they are also looking to do some sort of development. I don't recall what, townhomes, apartments, or whatever, on the North Berwick side. And so just a quick nod, is that still true and accurate? Okay, so there's more here than, what I would say, meets the eye in the sense of what we're being presented with. Not in the sense of, I don't think anything nefarious is going on here. I think you've been very upfront with us as it pertains to our ordinances. You disclosed this prior, so I want to make it very clear that I don't think that anything underhanded is going on here. This goes back to my review before coming to the meeting. So I had those concerns about this public way turning into a private way and where that line is. Because again, it seems to be that there's this foregone conclusion that the town is automatically going to accept it as a public way. Well, we have concerns, and when I say we have concerns, the town has expressed some concerns. I did have a conversation with the town manager, a couple of weeks ago. I followed up again today just to understand where the town might be going on this. And I'm not going to put words in the manager's mouth here, but I will, fair to say, I think there is some trepidation that the more you look into this, that the more issues might arise out of this. And again, those are my words. I want to be very, very clear. Those are my words. Those were not said directly to me. It was simply based on my reasoning of the conversation that had occurred. So as we go back and we look at the ordinances and some of our other requirements there that we're supposed to be looking at, it does give us the ability to address what we perceive to be impacts on the town and its resources. I can't quote the specific article. I reviewed it, I read it, it's in there, I know it is. So I guess as we move forward, you know, I just want to kind of throw out this thought at this point in time. You know, if the development moves forward, and I think it's fair to say, at least from my position, I think the development, while we still have some documentation to review, I don't really see it stopping. I do think that it's reasonable to conclude on my own that as generally presented, it will most likely move forward. But I think we need to really hone in on this public road versus private road. I see issues down there, whether if the town were to accept this new unnamed road, eventually it will terminate at the Berwick line where it will become a private road. First time it snows, town's gonna get calls. Why isn't my road plowed out? There's gonna be issues, there's gonna be maintenance issues, not being maintained. Having been down this road in the past multiple times, I see this rife with issues. So what I'm gonna generally propose or talk about, I'd like to throw out there for some consideration, is notwithstanding the prior conversations and documentation that we have received from the association out there, which frankly, I just want to be clear, that is not necessarily leading me to this statement, other than to say, on that right of way that would connect the existing Meadow Pond area to the new area, I'm going to propose that we move forward and consider that to be a private road, because right now we are not in a position to say it's going to be a public road. The town has expressed some trepidation. We have that documentation probably here in this folder being expressed to us by the Public Works in terms of the impacts that they will experience. So I guess that being said, based on those and the fact that I believe we as a board do have some semblance of an obligation to look out for the impact on the resources, and I'll kind of add why I'm going down this road. It almost seems like we're putting the cart before the horse. In other words, we're saying, hey, build a new public road, this is what we want to do, and then voila, you're going to go to town council, they're going to approve it. Well, to me, this seems a little bit backwards. Now, I know there's things we can do, build it to town standards, etc. However, we've heard from the town that they have concerns. And I guess what I would propose is that stretch of land that would ultimately connect that right-of-way. We all know the right-of-way we're talking about, that be maintained as is. And the new road be simply a new road, so they won't formally be connected. In other words, that right-of-way will not formally connect the existing Meadow Pond to this new unnamed area. And that from that point over, it's all private. It's a clear delineation between a public way and a private way. No questions, we know it's there. And that's an easy conclusion to come to in terms of what impacts that might have on the town. And let the homeowners association worry about it from that point forward. Let them negotiate with whoever the private owner is going to be, make development on the other end. I think we're asking the town, we're putting the town into a position if we move forward and say that, hey, we think it's great, going to be a public way. I think either way, we cut it. The town is going to be getting pulled into this, and how much of a responsibility do we think the town should have? Now, that being said, the question is, what do we do with that right of way? I say leave it as it, clean it up, landscape, and make it available for, you know, in the event public safety needs to get access. I've seen some pretty creative things that can be put in to allow for public safety access, fire departments, ambulances, et cetera. I
Are you referring to Meadow Pond or Industry?
Meadow Pond where the right of way where Meadow Pond would theoretically go into the new development, there's that right of way.
They connect.
Yeah,
Yeah, right where they connect. Two, you know, in addition to that, well, you need to have two access points. Well, if you look at our ordinances and really dive into it, the ordinance doesn't give us any further guidance in terms of what that access point looks like. It's been gated for how long now?
Well, it wasn't supposed to be that.
Well, it is, and so the bottom line is, even if we say take the gate out, landscape, and have some buffers in there, and in an emergency, a vehicle could get through. But, you know, at the end of the day, I struggle to believe that Meadow Pond is not going to be the primary one access point. We're gonna run into a lot of problems. The town, not us, we can approve, we're done. But I think there's a lot of issues down the road that we're asking the town to accept. So I think in this regard, the development can move forward at the proposed number of homes, 35 or something like that, forget it. And that would maintain the integrity of a public way, private way, keep that separation, no questions. It's easy to assume. That's what I want some consideration on. Ultimately, I'm only one board member, but I think if you look at what our responsibility is in terms of the ordinances, I think we could clearly come to that conclusion as well. So I'll throw that out there for conversation.
Okay, just for clarification's sake, so you're proposing that, they don't actually use the right of way to create.
Correct.
Well,
The
no,
primary
there's two
entry,
separate
the primary entrance exit is Industry Drive.
Industry Drive,
That's it.
okay. Well, because the way I'm looking at it, it sounds like there's two different issues that are being brought up. One, the ongoing maintenance, upkeep, snow removal, an expense, and who's gonna be responsible for that. And two, using both entrances, or giving them the ability to use both, or the residents of this new subdivision to use both entrances. Seem like kind of separate issues, because we could keep it private, but have it built to city standard.
You could.
And then just have the homeowners association either foot the cost or
Yep.
come to the city later to petition for.
Yep.
as we
You
come up
absolutely could do that. I guess what I'm saying is having a clear distinction though, between one road and the other. If you create that connection, the first snowstorm or the first time something goes wrong out there, that's when the complaints start. Who's doing this and why that's not plowed and how are we getting in? So all I'm saying is I think we're opening ourselves up, not just on that one issue, but I think, you know, if you look at it individually and then collectively, I think the town we would be opening up the town to a lot of headaches. And so what I'm saying is if we look at our ordinances, we are allowed to consider items such as what we're saying and say, move the development forward. But you know, we don't have to allow that right of way to be paved and accessed, and we can say no. Problems avoided, use Industry Drive as primary entrance and exit. So again, I'm only one member. But I think if we're looking out and looking and going back and reviewing the information, we have concerns that were brought to us that I don't think it's wise to just simply say, yeah, whatever.
I'm under the impression that roads are private until they at some point petition the town to accept them. That often happens in these cluster developments sometime down the line. So I actually am glad you talked to the town about it, but I really just feel like we're gonna, if and when we approve it, it will be a private road, and after that, it's, you know, it's up to them on petitioning the town later on. I don't think we've ever accepted a project where we did that up front, so
I'm not
that's.
suggesting we have that ability.
No, we don't, and I just, you know, I mean, it's great to raise the concerns. I think always building to the town standard is smart in case that does happen later. I can't imagine why you do it any other way, and also there's, you know, you have to meet what the fire department expects of you in terms of getting down the road, and I mean, there's an access road because you have to have 2 points, and so I think it has to be usable, whether you put up a sign or not, I don't think it should be gated, I guess. But I just think we should, as long as, and Wyatt, I assume that you've gone through the third-party review and made whatever corrections and answered. I mean, I know we have this huge bundle and I looked at it, but, I'm gonna trust that whatever, it seems like almost all their comments were really not substantial ones, but mainly ones around, how your plans were drawn and how things were indicated and that kind of.
I mean, they touched on the traffic and they were assuming this.
So I wanna be clear, I don't see any issues with the third-party review, but the issue is gonna be, the next step for us would be to approve the preliminary plan and move it to the final plan. So what I'm saying is, I'm fine with the third-party review, I'm raising another issue. And that issue is, I believe it's an issue. I would like to talk about it, but you're the board as well, and so I'm one of one vote here.
I don't see what the issue is, though. It's a private road, and if they wanna do something later, they can.
Well, and then if
What
they
does that
want,
have to do?
well, I think it already becomes a foregone conclusion that all of this stuff has been taken into account, the road is in, it's there, it's able to be traversed. What I'm saying is, keep them separate, don't pave it, and if they want to go to the town and petition down the road, fine, come back and ask for an amendment to the site plan and then pave that road if that's what they want to do.
Pave
Pave that,
that little tiny section.
Yep.
I guess my concern is just I mean, yes, well, there's technically an entrance that maybe the fire trucks can access when an emergency or something. Like, last winter, I live in Old Mill, and, we went, during one of the blizzards, there was an accident that cut off the entrance to 236. It's great, it's a long way to cut through Agamenticus to go to have a second way out. But when I'm stuck in my house with no power and I can't go one way, it's good that, I don't need a 4-wheel drive truck to get through a unplowed area in a blizzard. You know what I mean? At least I know there's an actual road that I can use to get to and from my house. If one is cut off by an accident, by a down power line, by whatever it may be, and I don't want 35 homes to have one fail point necessarily.
Well, I think, maybe the developer can find some other place, I think there may be some other opportunities out there that are up to them. Again, this isn't something that we've looked at very heavily in the past, but again, based on the review of the information, concerns being brought to us that directly impact taxes down the road, do we need to give this consideration? I think we do. But again, I am one of
I'm not even
the board
sure
members
what
here.
you're asking us to consider here. I'm sorry.
So what I'm saying is, so let me be clear. What I'm saying is that access road, that right of way,
Yep.
leave it as is.
So it to me, I have to admit,
That's fine.
well, I'm there, I think. It's pointless to have a second point of access if it's not actually accessible. And a plow can't plow something really well that isn't paved. Right? You dig your blade in, it churns up, it ruins it. After a winter, you've got this really rutted, awful road that's unusable. I live on a dirt road, I know how bad it can be. And, we are supposed to have 2 points of access, they're both supposed to be accessible, let's just do that. That's what I think should have to happen. So, and I'd be surprised if the fire department would say, just leave this a dirt, or emergency access a dirt stretch, or an ambulance, or the police, or,
Yep.
So, yeah, and I think we've discussed discouraging its usage with signage, and I think that's, maybe it's not great, but I think that's an alternative that could be looked at in terms of trying to direct people one way or another. So.
I just see issues down the road because at the end of the day, on the other terminus, it's going to be a private way that we have technically no control over.
Okay.
And I see issues down there for the town. And so if it were me, I'd be given that consideration. But again, like I said,
But the other terminus you referred to.
and the industry drive in, yeah, I think either way, that's going to be an issue,
So
I
I think your point is well made, Greg, and I agree with you in terms of we can't really say it's a foregone conclusion that the town will take this over, but if the right of way here is not an actual road, I think all the problems that you're talking about do become an issue because Industry Road, the other side of Industry Drive, is right of way. Whereas if they were to take that over, there is no real road here. Now you're talking about having to like coordinate with private entity.
Make the developer do it, why is the town gonna do that?
Well, I'm not saying they would, but if the town, that's something that would be considered by whoever making that decision at that point, but.
I don't think the town ever has to take it over, it's sort of the choice of the town, doesn't, that's not.
Yeah, no, I understand,
I-
and I'm not laying blame here in the town and saying that, what I'm saying is after my review, we've been presented with some concerns. And so we have the ability to do something about it, and that's my proposal. You go there, you don't, I'm only one voting board member, and I'm not, my feelings aren't hurt either way. folks.
I think that the concerns are not alleviated by not having that be a paved road. I think that only exacerbates the concerns of the town, which are legitimate, I think. I wasn't in at the sidewalk, so I haven't seen that section, so I don't know what condition it's
Yeah,
in.
I think
right
it just
now.
creates a clear delineation between a private road, the public road. And a clear point of who's responsible for what. Push it out on Industry Drive, emergency vehicles can still get through if need be. And are there other opportunities that the developer may have to look at? I think we would be fools to think that, you know, if they're gonna try to go through Industry Drive to a 35 unit subdivision, that would be in the developer's interest. I don't think that's gonna be a very welcoming entrance. So I think that's gonna be pushing everybody through the other side. We're getting into those longer term positions. Again, my thoughts. It's up to the board what you wanna do. I just wanna give this gentleman, before we approve a preliminary plan, and ultimately, is there any further direction? So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I think we do have somewhat of an obligation to review and take heed at those letters that were given to us. But again, like I'll say, I am one member of the board.
I mean, I think we struggled through all of this before the third party review and none of it is perfect.
Yeah.
So, there just isn't a great solution around having Industry Drive have so much industry on it, but I also, you know, you can't force people to drive one way or another to some extent. I mean, you could make things one way, I guess, or something like that, but, you know.
Yep.
2 points of access will hopefully alleviate some of the problem. And I have to say, you know, if I were coming through town to go home and I lived there, I would come down Industry Drive. I'm not gonna drive all the way around and go through their neighborhood. It just is circuitous. So I don't really, you know, and I don't think Industry Drive is great, but I'm not sure what else they can do. You know,
Well, I think that whole act is problematic anyway.
Well,
And that is,
I agree.
yeah, that's how
Don't
they're gonna access
disagree.
that anyway. So my question is this,
So
do we have a fifth member? Of any reserve planning board members?
Zach Noble.
Okay, it's been a long time. Well, I'm not voting, so I'm just being clear. So I don't know what you guys, you know, so you need to have a.
You're not voting for it because you don't want to.
I would like to have a plan, if it's gonna move to the final plan, I'd like to see that right away taken off.
So can
And a clear separation between private road, public road. I don't wanna see that access.
So we have to have 2 access points.
There will be 2 access points. To what level the ordinance does not stipulate.
But Greg, you have to admit, like, sort of saying that the zoning ordinance requires 2 points of access, but then to sort of set it up so the point of access isn't really usable, to me seems a bit of a.
So
I wanna hear from Jen.
if you've driven on the Meadow Pond side of it, the concerning point of that is, and you know, I agree with Greg and everything he's saying because town staff has reviewed this as well. However, if you go onto the Meadow Pond side of it and you actually drive that kind of loop that other access point sits on, there's a house there that's gonna have to like revamp their whole like end of their driveway situation
Just
to get
sold.
into their house. What?
They just sold it.
What is
Okay.
can you tell me the number? Do you know what number house that is?
It probably looks like Google
60.
Maps.
I mean, I can't because my computer's,
Maybe
I'm so sorry.
maybe 69 Meadow Pond Road.
Okay, so The concerning part is their driveway is right in that access point. They're gonna have to retake their driveway, correct?
Which the developer put there.
Can you come to the mic, just so that we can have what you're saying? Can you help me with this? Because that's the only concerning part. It's brand new.
Sorry, I was just saying something.
Let me just. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Go ahead, Tony.
Okay.
If you look on Google Earth, just
I'm
Ken's
looking.
finished.
Yeah, go ahead,
Sure,
go ahead.
sure, yeah, I've driven that.
If you haven't and you can look on Google Earth, you'll see what I mean.
Yeah, I remember the walkthrough. I remember.
And I
remember
wanna
seeing it.
also tell you that if an emergency vehicle needs to get in, they will get in. And if emergency vehicle needs to get out, they will get out.
Oh,
I think that access road that is currently gated can be rehabbed and have some landscaping type buffers put in to prevent that continuous flow of traffic. But again, I'm looking at it from the perspective of having clear delineation between public and private way and the headaches, frankly, that is going to cause. I see them down the road. You know, I rely on my own experience with that kind of stuff. And so that ultimately is my proposal. to say.
It's 69 Meadow Pond Road.
Yeah, 69.
Okay.
It's confirmed that that's what
You
it
know,
is.
I think to do otherwise is really
Yeah.
largely ignoring what we're being told from some of our own professional staff. That I don't think it prevents any of the development going forward.
I don't know that the town would have a problem delineating between private and public, so who are we trying to like delineate for?
What's that?
For the public?
Yeah, and if you're driving on that road.
No, I think if you go back and look, you'll see that there are some clear concerns that are raised by Public Works in terms of the ongoing maintenance, winter maintenance, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And so when you start looking at where does a public road become a private road, and where do we stop plowing? That they're gonna go down to that little area, they're gonna turn around, keep that other roadway plowed in. And then that's number one, just one simple example, when the problems will arise.
You enter that access point today, you have to go up in here, and that's the driveway to that one house. Just so you guys understand what it's like.
I remember walking on it.
So. What I wanna do is I wanna make sure that the gentleman from ADAR understands before we get the final plan. Or any, I have that concern, again, I'm one member. I'm feeling they're not heard.
I guess I'm having a hard time seeing how, I mean, I don't really see that being an issue, to be honest with you, because is Public Works gonna just plow that because they say, oh, there's a road that we gotta plow it. They know that would be a
Like I said,
private.
they're actually
private
gonna
road.
plow all the snow, will plow right into there and leave it there, is what's gonna happen.
Right,
Right.
and then the problem becomes,
You won't be able to
when
get
you
through it all.
start getting the complaints coming in from the residents who live on the other side, again, just one example. You know, who's gonna get phone calls? Not gonna be any of us. But then you're gonna look back here, and you're gonna say, geez, the public works director kind of told us about this, maybe this is an issue, maybe we should give it some thought. You know, and so we never really go to
Help explain that they're on a private driveway. They know they'll be getting it when they buy the house, they'll know they're on the private road.
One would think.
No, they didn't.
Well, one would think, I think we have seen testimony from all those attendants, true or not true. Folks buy, they don't know, they sign things, they don't read, I'm not, that's ignorance, right?
But that's everywhere.
But that's going to happen, and all I'm telling you is the folks that are gonna be getting the calls are gonna be downstairs here, and we're setting that up to say, hey, not a problem, go ahead. Not a problem for me, I'll be at home sleeping. You know, all I'm saying is the ordinance does allow us, it does suggest that we have every right to look at items that are going to negatively impact the town. We have documentation that says it's going to. And every year, we're basically being asked as non-policy makers to do something and set something that is setting the town up for budgetary increases. The town can say no, but we're saying village town standards, there's nothing for them to rely on to say, we just simply don't want it. And I think that needs to be looked at and addressed.
Well, Are
in
we
general,
telling them
and
that
from
they
a
need to build
policy
it?
level perspective.
Are we telling them that they need to build it to town standard, or are they saying down the road, this is gonna be?
Well, I think
efficient
their intent is to build it to town standards so that they can then turn it over, petition the town to turn it over and take ownership of it.
But that's not us, that's not us.
That's not us, that's them. And so what I'm saying is now that we know that, do we have some other level of obligation to look at?
Well, I guess my only question is, if you talk to people in the town, maybe they should have to come in and have a discussion about whether ultimately they're gonna reject this, and I think you guys get to know that then, right? And you get to know it now, I think, as opposed to what's gonna happen in a year or two when you petition the town. So if that's your point, if your point is that DPW or Tim or somebody in the town council has had concerns and has said, we're not going to accept this road ever, just because we feel like it's a capacity issue, then that's something I think we should vet before we move ahead, and you should get to know, right?
I don't disagree.
I guess that's the point, in which case, then we have to ask them to come in. I mean, it's not enough to send in a letter, you have to be able to have this discussion with them, I guess, so.
You know, I almost wonder if it would be a request to the town council for consideration, depending on what they want to do. It wouldn't need to go through the formal process. Because again, we can talk to the town manager or DPW, but they're not the authorizing person. I don't believe they are.
No, time not.
And as you
I think it's
know,
the town.
I mean, the only cluster subdivision I remember is the little one that's right near, what used to be the ice cream store, now it's a childcare center, right, where 91 and.
Talking about Bull Lane.
Yeah, and it was tiny, it was, how many units was it, like 5, 6, 7, 8 units, something like that?
Well, again, so when you look at this individually, okay, individually, they're not substantive, but collectively, it tends to be a substantive
No, I
impact.
got you.
And so this is the substantive development extent.
Right.
You know, it's a lot. Like I said, I think the development as a whole, I think, in my view, I see it moving forward. But I think in some of those small items that we can technically control, it comes down to that access point. And I think, we have information that suggests that that's going to present some challenges. And I think we have an obligation to look at it.
But I still,
I'm less worried about the access plan, I'm more worried about whether the town takes over the road, I guess, but.
yeah, well, I mean, and then I think that's, the issue that you're bringing up, I think are very justified as far as the expense for the town and whether or not they want to take on that expense entirely. That's all perfectly understandable. But also, if town council is the one that has to approve that, what is are we just trying to take away the option for them to approve that?
I think if the town council ultimately approves it in terms of what we can do in following the processes that are available to us as the planning board, we say no to that access road, let them go to the town council, petition the town council, then come back and ask for an amendment, the town council says yes. There you go, problem solved, right? That's what we do, we can make that decision tonight, hand it off, be done with it, let them come back. That's following the process that we have. And that gives them something that they can do. Whereas now if we engage in further conversation, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, we'll see in a couple of months. At least it sets the stage for what they need to do next. They clear, we make a decision, we tell them what we're thinking, and then they can go and do whatever they want to do. Nothing would prevent them from going to the town council now and asking, let the town council make that determination. Town council says, yes, put it in. If they say no, don't put it in. But that is the right that we have as a planning board.
Can they petition the town council before they've gotten zoning board approval?
I don't know. That's a good question, Rich. I don't know.
That's a
So
procedural oddity, I think, on my end.
my
But it
understanding
seems
is
like
they
a
can't
quick
go, my understanding is they can't go in front of the town council and ask them to take it over until it's built to town standards,
Right.
ready to be.
Right.
So in that regard, go ahead and build it.
But still,
You know,
Yeah.
we can tell you, build it to town standards. No, you're not going here. Go petition. If the town council says yes, come back and ask for a site plan amendment. Go ahead and we'll allow it and put it in. That to me seems to protect all parties moving forward and asks the town council for ultimate approval at the end of the day before we make the determination. And in terms of making decisions or doing things that are going to ultimately impact the town. We're not the policy making board in terms of that type of decision. That's the town council.
We are still leaving 35 homes for families without
There's plenty of time,
usable
plenty of time to work it
access
out.
point.
Yeah, plenty of time to work it out, but we also don't know if they're gonna come back with something different. We also know they're going through North Berwick. They've been in conversations over there, right? I don't know what you're thinking, I haven't seen it. You showed us something a long time ago, I don't remember what it was.
You mean the $1 million road?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not.
Well, that, and I'm not saying I agree with that, but what I'm saying is,
Yes.
and I'm not saying I agree with that, what I'm saying is, I don't know, we haven't seen anything else. And so as a developer, I think that's incumbent upon them. Why should we roll and just give it to them?
Yeah, a lot of this just seems to be about Industry Drive and, I pulled out the deeds around that other little side street.
Stone Lane,
Yeah, Stone Lane, and actually it wasn't really clear that
they all have a right of way over it.
they all have a right of way over it. Yeah, why that is still untenable somehow.
Yeah.
I know you don't have the interest in it, you don't own it. But you have a right of way to it, it looked like.
It was my understanding that the only viable area that we would be able to go through at the end of Stone Lane, to be right at the end, as close as we can get to Industry Drive.
Yeah.
Would be pretty heavily disrupting an area that I believe, I really can't confirm this, I have not been out there. Is used for stormwater management. And he may know better than me.
No, the pond
It
doesn't
doesn't
go that far.
matter.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter
it
right
really
now.
is, doesn't it? Yeah, it really doesn't. And so I think, I would have no problem moving this forward, frankly, tonight, and even going as far as saying we'll approve
Well, it's
the next stage.
It's prelim, we still get another shot.
No, I understand.
I think
But
that's,
in fairness, board needs to give this gentleman an idea of what we're looking for when he comes back. I have a problem with it, I'm one board member. I think there are legitimate concerns, those have been expressed to us in writing. And I think we have an obligation, and I see a clear path. You can grant approval. Don't grant that access point there. Let him build it, go to town council, if the road is approved, fine, then they can come back and ask for a site plan amendment.
let's hear from Tony.
Thank
He's
you.
been standing there for a while, thank you for standing.
I think most of you know me, Tony Palazetti, Whitetail Drive, president of the Meadow Pond Homeowners Association. And I'm speaking from just one side of the documents here, because all I have is what was in the packet from Mr. Wood. So I don't know what the third party, response provided. But a couple of things I want to point out, in listening to you back and forth, I share a lot of the same concerns. Let me tell you, so we talked about not having the chair's concerned that maybe we put, most a gated entrance off of Meadow Pond Road, that right of way that's there, and they access everything in and out of Industry Drive. Okay, that would be 100% fine with the Meadow Pond Homeowners Association. What I find interesting is in the plan that was provided to you all, that was signed off on the 24th of October, so a week ago, it shows a locked gate with a Knox box on Industry Drive. So the developer has put forward a plan to you saying that Industry Drive is going to be gated and only available for emergency access, which only leaves one point of egress into this new development, and that's through Meadow Pond Estates, which I know this board has previously told them was not going to be sufficient. So, but they're still putting it forward on their plans that were updated a week ago.
It's on our list.
Okay, couple of other things.
That's a third party review coming for you.
What's that?
That's a third party review.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, couple of just little factoid things. They say, based on their traffic study, 7 to 8 vehicles, 7 entering, 8 vehicles returning per hour at the peak time. And they say that's 8 extra vehicles, or 1 vehicle every 8 minutes. No, do the math. It's 1 vehicle every 4 minutes. So they've misstated by half the traffic impact that would be coming out through Meadow Pond Drive, Meadow Pond Road.
I'm sorry, that's in their response.
That's in their response, third paragraph down, about the middle of the paragraph. It says 7 vehicles entering and 8 vehicles exiting, or 1 vehicle every 8 minutes. Do the math, it's 1 vehicle every 4 minutes. Okay, a little bit more.
Who leaves their house anymore?
Oh, yeah. All right. They make this point Although gating this entrance, this is into Meadow Pond, has been proposed, it makes little sense that a public road, which is the only access within the town of South Berwick to a subdivision in the same town, is not utilized. The alternative Industry Drive results in an additional 1.5 miles of travel for access. How is that possible? If it's a South Berwick development, you have to presume that schools and everything are serviced in South Berwick. So you're coming from out Route 4 from South Berwick and turning on Industry Drive. That's a shorter distance. You say it yourself if you lived in there. But in their response, they say it's going to add 1.5 miles to all the people's commute if they can't come through Meadow Pond Drive. That's just an overstatement of conjecture. Okay.
Maybe they assume you go up Agmenticus and then cement road and.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You know.
And I don't know that it makes a difference procedurally, but they continue to refer to this as Meadow Pond Phase 3.
I heard it.
Yeah, and they say this is just a continuation of a previously approved plan. It's not. And they can say it all day long, but it's not the fact. The fact is this is a new development. They just want to make it part of the existing one. I don't know if that has an impact, Hannah, on, you know, approvals and things like that. I don't know. From the DEP perspective, I don't know.
As far as the stormwater.
Stormwater, I don't know. All right,
They have to get a DEP permit for phase 1 and 2.
they did.
Okay, so I'll take you, understood. I'm gonna take you, Tony, at your words. So when you have to go through the process from the, does this have to need a SLOTA application, the Site Location of Development Act?
I'm unsure. I'm, as far as those two go, I was not involved. I don't really have an answer.
Jen, do you know if this requires what they call a SLOTA permit from DEP?
I would assume so, but.
I'm pretty
Based on size?
Yeah,
And so is this a new SLOTA permit or is this an amendment to the existing SLOTA that was granted out there whenever this was?
2004.
So that can be a huge technical hangup, in the sense that I'm sure they've done their homework on that. But knowing a thing or two about the SLOTA process, I also know that it can be quite complicated. And is this an amendment or is this brand new? And if it's an amendment, how does that alter the original one? And if it's brand new, are they taking into account the other existing impacts out there?
Whichever it is, I know we have discussed it before, I just don't remember.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough.
Okay. Two last points I'd like to make, sir. Towards I think it's the second to last page, or just about the last page. In spite of the fact that it's been raised many times here in this quorum, and we've gone on record, the Meadow Pond Homeowners Association, that we would not extend our homeowners association to cover this new development. We've said it multiple times. I don't think the board has had any issue with that. And I think at times our engineering has even acknowledged that that was the case. Yet on the last page of his response, second paragraph, party responsible for implementing the operation and maintenance program for the stormwater will be the McLand Development Incorporated or the Meadow Pond Estates Homeowners Association, once the association assumes legal responsibility for the product or for the property.
Maybe he didn't realize that was, well, he must have known it was your name, but it'll just be another homeowner association.
Yeah.
But again,
And what I would insist on as the board, depending on whatever direction we go in either way, to prevent issues like this coming forward in the future, we want to review those, homeowners, the HOA articles, to make sure that there's a clear understanding from the beginning. So this process, I just, you know, this is a 35 unit subdivision. Nothing like this has happened in this town in a long time. Everything that we've been dealing with has been little 2, 3, 4, 5 homes. Those are simple. This is not simple. This is going to be a huge impact. I think it's fair to say you can move forward, take that right of way, take that out. You're here, Meadow Pond is here. Build your project, and if you want to go to the town council when it's all done, go ahead. If they say yes, fine. Then they come back and ask for a site amendment, and we'll grant it. And we can even put that in there as a condition if you want.
just to circle back, it's an amendment to the SLOTA.
Well, they're gonna have to do both unless they get the SLOTA permit to approve that particular aspect, because if they don't include that in the original scope of SLOTA permit, that's not a town permit, that's a state permit. If they don't include that in the original SLOTA, then they have to go back and get an amendment on that. Site Location of Development Act, because it's a certain number size of an area.
Oh,
I have in my notes from April 19th that they filed their amendment on February 20th.
So it was an amendment, okay, that answers that question.
So they're amending,
They're amending the original application.
which didn't cover anything about this twice large development. I mean, this is twice as large as phases 1 and 2 combined.
Yep.
And
Tony, I
I get it.
hear you, and I gotta be honest with you, whether or not it was phase 1 or 2 or 3, even if you do, it almost doesn't matter. Again, I'm not saying either side was right or wrong, the bottom line is, they can come and build on the land.
Yeah.
You know, so that is what it is, and so if you feel duped by them, I can't help you with that, other than to say you're welcome to have your opinion on that, but we don't have it, I don't have an opinion on it.
No, and I can appreciate that. And I know you guys have to, you know, look at this completely objectively as you work through it. But I do want to point out one last point, okay? It's addressed in, you know, toward the bottom of the first page of his response. And it was brought up here a couple of times as I was listening to the back and forth amongst the board members that, you know, this was their alternative, you know, as far as the secondary access besides Industry Drive. And they gave us, as Hershey mentioned, you know, the $1 million road. Okay, that was absolutely just a straw thrown out there, you know, nice shiny object. Look, we considered this as an alternative, but it was going to add $1 million to the price, and it was going to disrupt 9,000 more square feet of wetlands. It's just not feasible to do that. Well, I will tell you, after that meeting, I handed Mr. Wood my contact information. And you're just hearing this from me, my side. He called me the next morning and I said, I really appreciate you calling me. And his response was, well, if I don't call you, somebody's going to say that I don't return calls. I said, okay, I know you've spoken to our attorney. We'd like to talk to you about alternatives, you know, access across some property that is part of our association, that you could perhaps gain an alternate access out to Route 4. And he said, I'm not even going to consider it. Because whatever I do, it's going to increase the wetland impact and it's going to put me over the threshold and I'm going to be, you know, paying $100,000 to some reserve set aside program because of the wetland impacts that I'm having. That made me go back and go, wow, how would he know? Well, if you look at the plans, you look at the calculations of the wetland impacts, tier 1 approvals are anything below 15,000 square feet of impact. This project has 14,300 and some odd square feet. So any additional impact, even if his assessment of where the wetlands are were off by 6 inches, they'd already be in the tier 2. Okay, I've raised that separately to the main DEP, just say, can somebody take a look at this? Because I'm not sure that the assessment is accurate. Because that's our engineering identified where the wetlands and where the boundaries were. And it's just, and again, to be completely, you know, on the level, but to be 500 square feet off of the limit and to be so keen to that, that when I mentioned an alternative place or way to go, he immediately shut it down because he knew it would drive them over the tier 1 approval process.
Yeah, but he's not the only engineer, not to take up for him because I don't care to, I don't care either way. But he's not the only engineer that does that. So like, whether it's a TAR or whether it's ABC, XYZ, it doesn't matter. That's
right. But what I'm getting at is we wanted to come and sit down with them in good faith and offer solutions, try to figure out a way that they could not come through our neighborhood, destroy the ambiance of where we all live. And we were willing to give up, you know, at least come to the board and ask for an amendment to our plan to allow them right away through some property that would get them access out to Route 4. Okay, there is other property along Route 4 that is owned wholly by MIC Corporation as well. But again, this is the easy way. I mentioned this when I spoke the night that the video was shown, I think. They're looking for the least cost alternative to tie this in with a second access. They have been from day one. I don't blame them. They're a business. They're trying to maximize their profit, but they're not even considering alternatives. They just dismissed us out of hand, said, no, not even going to talk about it.
So, thank you. Obviously, there's multiple sides to any stories. I think what I would ask the board to consider is this is quite a bit more complicated than just a simple 3 or 4 house subdivision that we've dealt with in the past. I think the appropriate way, from my view, to do this would be to direct the engineer to remove that right of way portion. And I would see no point, no issue at that point moving the development and otherwise present it forward. Build your building, build your road. If you want to go ask for town council approval, go ahead. Get your town council approval, then come back and ask us for an amendment to the land use permit. Now the proverbial cart is not being put, or the cart is not being put before the horse. And so to me, as you move forward, that sets up a clear delineation, keeps us, the town, out of the inevitable public v. private issue that's gonna come up down in the industry side end anyway, that we would be hit with no matter, frankly, no matter what. But if we can move that up and say, here's where our road ends, this is where we plow, you're on your own. Have your HOA do that. And then we need to look at those HOA documents and make sure that we do have the ability in our ordinances to do that and to ensure that we don't run into these problems again. So there is a clear expectation or understanding from the beginning. This is, I believe we owe it to the town as just residents here in general and the people in general, that this is a huge subdivision. Again, this is not a typical 3 or 4 house. So anyway, I just want to be clear, I'm not going for it, but if you want to vote for it, I'll call for the vote, you can vote it. But that's where I'm going.
I am happy to continue having a discussion about both the access road, Industry Drive, and other alternatives, but I also think we should move forward. So I think we've had a third-party review, they've addressed the third-party review. I appreciate the town has concerns about the road. I think we can move to the next level and keep all of those things active without continuing to delay.
So if we accept the preliminary plan, if we accept the process, it would move to the final plan review. And really largely, if concerns exist, and they do, I'll raise it again. I would not vote for the final plan that incorporates that. I'm happy to give this gentleman some direction. If the board doesn't want to do that and vote the preliminary plan, fine. But when it comes to the final plan, I want that addressed. And again, at the end of the day, if this board votes otherwise, fine. My feelings aren't hurt. I just believe that there is a lot to this. And, you know, I believe it's asking a lot. A 35-acre subdivision, 4 people a house, all the cars, everything going on down there. I think it's a lot. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It's going to happen with the number of homes. We can't really stop that because they meet the calculation requirements. But we haven't dealt with anything this big. And I think take it slow, take it careful. I'm not in favor of that access point. But what do you want to do? We have largely said before we start talking in circles now, which we're starting to do. Are there any further conversations or comments about the third-party review? Does anybody have any underlying concerns? I don't have any in the third-party review. I think everything has been largely satisfied. I just want to confirm that there weren't any other issues from town staff associated with that. Third-party review, we're good.
Yeah, there are a few things that were not satisfied based on this submission, and we've already talked to Wyatt about those.
Oh, okay. What were those?
Minor things, mostly related to the stormwater plans, and that is related to their coordination with DEP.
Army Corps of Engineers.
Army Corps.
Okay.
And so that's something that they're handling on their end. So it'll be reflected slightly differently in the plans, but that's a process that they had to do with Army Corps before they could reflect it on the plans. But minor as relation to all the other things we're discussing. But other than that.
Okay, so then that puts us back to square one. Preliminary plan is before us. What's the pleasure of the board? Someone can make a motion.
What are our options here?
So it's pretty straightforward. Yeah. The options are you approve it on the preliminary plan and you say move to final plan. That final plan would presumably come back to this board, I don't know, a couple of meetings from now, next meeting, I don't know. As soon as you get it, right? There's a deadline for submittal. This board can say, hey, we'll approve you to go to final plan, but we want you to take this out. And then they come back with final plan, that's removed, and then we see that on the final plan. Everybody is presumably happy and we approve it. So it's really kind of two options, right?
By design, you mean the secondary access.
And as far as I'm concerned, yeah, I mean, that's what I see. I don't see, I'm happy to have that conversation. Or if any board member here sees any other avenues, but I think this is kind of what it's coming down to. Let's not forget, we also need that water issue resolved too. That is really, frankly, simply unresolved. Again, I don't want anybody dismissing the fact that this is a massive development.
Right, and it sounds like you've had some very good conversations, that, you know, obviously.
So I want to be clear, I have not had conversation, I have looked at the documents, I have went back and I looked at everything, and I'm like, you know, personally, we need to go back and think twice about this in the sense of, here's what we're being told. I'm just, you know, I'm being told by folks out there in the field that are saying, here's the impacts on the town. Yeah, whatever. You know, I don't want to be in that position as the planning board, in my position. You know, I don't think that's prudent on our behalf. We have the ability in our ordinances to say, yeah, that's not okay. So I'm comfortable saying, move forward, take that out. Go back, you know, build your buildings, do all the stuff you want to do, then go ask for acceptance of the road. And if they grant you approval on that, the town council is now accepting everything that goes along with that. And then we'll come back and they can submit a site plan amendment and build your access road. But I think we're putting the cart before the horse. I think we've given them a clear path rather than this beleaguered meeting with no solution. You know, 99.9% of what they're asking to do, we're granted. So anyway, that's what I see as the two options. You can move it to preliminary plan or final plan as is, with subject to the water issue and any other conditions like, oh, you gotta have DEP, you gotta have MDOT permits if applicable for movement, that kind of stuff.
And do we know if this was approved without the improvement to that secondary access point, that it would meet zoning codes for the?
We could ask the attorney. I think it would. It says secondary access. It doesn't say to what extent, what that looks like, what standards that has to be. Or you could waive it. I believe the zoning code does allow that. That's me, on my review. What do you think? What do you think?
We're just looking something up right now before you take a vote. We're looking up whether or not you can move it to final plan without definitely like pinpointing exactly access points. So if you could just give us a minute.
Sure. That was another question.
And we may not find the answer, but it's hard to send something, and I'm not trying to.
No,
but
that's why
it's
you're
hard
here
to approve something, to send it to final plan without pinpointing the exact access points for the plan to come, because final plan, everything's on it, everything's ready to go.
Yeah.
And usually the board takes a look at it, make sure everything's met, approve it, and then talk about their conditions of approval. So we're just checking.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I'm looking back, trying to find the, here. Is there something from emergency services saying
You have a letter from Chief Krieger in there, and you also have a letter
saying that the access right away as it currently is sufficient as a access point?
We also have a letter in there from Chief Clamps of the Berwick Fire Department and Nick Hamill of the South Berwick Fire Department talking about that access and the Knox box. That's like way back. So, yeah.
I have that in my documentation. I'm not saying it's in.
I see the one from Chief Hamill.
But there was a subsequent update to that.
But
There was.
I think that was talking about the Knox box on Industry Drive. From the one from Chief Hamill, which is off the table at this point. I'm just wondering if.
Oh, here it is. Folks, as a practical matter, obviously you know where I'm coming from, so I'm not hiding it at this point.
Yeah.
If you have that access road and it's, I can't recall, and you know, I don't know what's on the other side of it, but you can have that access road generally maintained, it's not paved, to discourage the throughway. Landscaping can be put in to compress that entry point, again, to further discourage the throughway, but it provides the necessary means for emergency access, which in my view, the intent of the ordinance would be for emergency access.
And I agree with that. I'm just wondering, can we remove that and they don't do anything to it and it's considered sufficient as an emergency access, or do they have to do some sort of updating to it to make it, you know, make it a gravel road or whatever, you know, whatever it may be?
I think there would have to be some minor maintenance done to it.
And that's what I'm
I
looking
think what we say
for.
to the developer is, hey, clear it out a little bit, mow it down, turn in some gravel, and then put in some additional features to limit that access and to make it not a designated visual throughway. And there you have maintained your access. Again, I just don't see this as an easy stamp of approval. But again, in fairness, I just want to point out, if we eliminate that portion, we're still allowing the developer theoretically to move forward as proposed, and Link Development can get right in there and start building.
But not if it's not sufficient as a second access point though, correct?
Yeah, from a definitional perspective, but I don't think you're gonna see anything in the ordinance that specifies this is what a secondary access point is, or looks like. I know you're not, look.
Yeah, I'm gonna propose this up to the next meeting, only because now you've raised all these concerns and now I need to go do some peeking around and, you know, asking some questions and looking through this myself. So I would be fine with one more meeting, though I'd really love to get to prelim past this at the next meeting. Really,
You could, yeah, no, okay, I'm good with that approach if you wanna continue this until the next meeting.
well, I'm not willing to. If we voted now, I would just move to I'd move past this, and I feel like an access road should be an access road, and if you want to put a sign saying it's an emergency access road to discourage people from using it, that's fine by me, but it really needs to be a real road, I think, so I'm not willing to, skim on that, so I'm okay with, you want to wait, I'm sorry, why wait another week to just sort of get a little more information, and maybe information from the town too, because I'm more concerned not about the access road, about this idea that, there's going to be an assumption as they develop that the town is going to take the road on, the town might not. So I wanted to hear a little more about that. If that means talking to DPW, we can. So that's where I'm at. And if I know the owners have been waiting a long time, and I feel like there's some point where we need to sort of, move this along, so. And we've been hung up about these access points for quite some time, so it sounds like there's a little bit of new information. I wanna take a look at it, I'm willing to wait to the next meeting to vote, but I really wanna vote like this meeting or next meeting. And move it ahead.
What if the board approved it as like an access, but gated that side of it for emergencies?
No.
Okay.
If I had a heart attack and somebody has to get out and open the fucking gate, I'm sorry. I just don't think that's cool. Sorry, sorry for my language, but I just.
And I'm not suggesting a gate. I don't think a gate should be put in. I'm saying you have a road that's just simply not paved and is constructed in such a way to discourage as it being a throughway. You're keeping the development separate. You're continuing the delineation of public versus private. Put it on the developer. If they want to build it, we'll approve it. Go ahead and go to the town council. If they approve it, come back after a site, put it in your road.
I'm leaning towards, I'm in line with Hershey in that if it's not an actual road. Maybe it rains, maybe we're in the springtime and the ambulance gets stuck because it's muddy or whatever. Again, I didn't go to the sidewalk. I don't know what the condition is at this moment. It looks like that kind of raises the same concern as having to unlock the gate. So at this point, I don't know enough from the town and people that are responsible for actually using that in the case of an emergency to waive that or take it away at this point.
So if we wanna do a little more due diligence, and there's a way to have some of that information, let's wait till the next meeting. And if there isn't gonna be any other new information, and this is all we have to go on, then I would rather just move along and vote now then.
I don't fault Esposito in any way, shape or form. I mean, you know, we've been waiting for a long time on the developer to get this information to us. The actual number of times.
Greg,
we've done this,
I'm
I'd like
happy to
to-
wait till next week, next meeting.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, the hard part about this for me is I feel like, so much of the third party review and everything was done predicated on that second entrance. And so, since this is all just new information, at least new to me, and when I was reviewing it, I assumed that second entrance was part of it, and that's the way the traffic studies have been done. And everything else, removing that all of a sudden is just, you know, I think just does take a little bit more due diligence. I don't necessarily think it's necessary. I'm not in love with that entrance, period.
Yeah.
I just do think that they do need a second viable entrance, period. And I wish it was anywhere
I want to
but
be clear,
there.
I'm not asking anybody to agree with me.
Yeah.
I think there's some further due diligence on that, and I'm happy to continue this preliminary plan with you until the next meeting.
So.
Sure, yes.
My only small piece I wanted to add as far as what traffic considerations were factored into the third party review. They actually give you the materials that were listed. I don't believe they included the traffic study as one of the materials they reviewed. So as far as the traffic implications therein, it's independent of whether or not that access is considered. Now, I do want to be clear, most of their, just because it's not addressed in there doesn't mean that it's something that can't have implications. But I want to be clear, as far as whether or not traffic study was considered in third party review, I mean, you have 23 sheet subdivision plan, it talks about that, it talks about what it stated, third party review packet, stormwater management plan, inspection maintenance log, operation maintenance program, as well as supplemental calculation sheets for quantity and treatment, and a copy of the DEP site location application amendment. Nowhere in there does it talk about traffic permits. So I don't think there would.
Primarily, really.
Yeah.
Stormwater.
Yeah.
It's almost entirely stormwater and grading, yes.
Fairly. All right, well, we'll continue it at the next meeting. Any further conversation on that?
I would just like to apologize for my swearing. Please don't tell Tim and have me drag before town council over this thing. Thank you.
All right, yeah, I don't think you had-
Please don't.
I don't think you had your microphone on.
Thank God.
So I probably picked it up. I picked it up on mine.
Whatever.
Well, anyway, hey, thanks for humoring me, folks, and me throwing that one out. So, like I said, I had a lot of time to think about this between the last time and this time. So anyway, I do think it's more complicated than we're realizing.
Hold on, why?
Just to make sure that I have everything straight, the main reason that it's being pushed to the next meeting and not voted on now is because there's still deliberation to be made between Industry Drive and specifically how we want to deal with the Meadow Pond end access. That is the main point of contention.
That, yes, correct, and the water issue.
Yep.
Needs to be finalized.
Yep.
I don't see, in my view, any other lingering issues.
You know, it would go a long way probably for the neighbors if you stop calling it Meadow Pond Phase 3. Or whatever you're calling it, just stop it with the, take it out, and that way everybody can just put it to bed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why not?
Thank you. Understood.
Sure.
Very good, all right, I don't think we need to make a motion on that, do we, to continue it? No, all right, well, let's drag this out for another meeting. Okay,
Let's. Okay.
is there any old business?
That was old business.
Yeah, I know, okay, there's nothing else, no public hearing, any comments? Yeah. Are there any member comments? Any comments on the board? No?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.